Hi, I'm Christian Baker, and whoever's viewing this, are watching Disastrous Science, and today we are going to be discussing the 1980 Mount Saint Helens Eruption. Stay tuned. So for today's video, we're going to break down our topic into 3 different sections, and these are the when, the where, and the why of the eruption, the impacts of the eruption, human and environmental, and we're going to be giving you guys some fun facts. And although there is nothing fun whatsoever about what we're going to discuss here today, yes, I said fun. So before I waste any time making this video probably even more cringier than it already is going to be, let's get started. A mess. So the eruption of Mount Saint Helens, and more specifically the famous eruption of Mount Saint Helens from 1980, happened in, yes, you guessed it, 1980. May 18th, 1980 to be exact, was not, and I repeat, not a great day for the people of the Midwestern United States. And because we're doing the specifics here on this video, the people of the state of Washington, please, if you can, and if you can stay awake, try to keep up with me. March 16th, 1980 marked the beginning of the signs that were ultimately the awakening of the volcano, and I say this because a chain of small earthquakes occurred. And for those of you who are curious, the Mount Saint Helens stratovolcano / mountain is located on a convergent boundary subduction zone, which makes it an ideal setting for tectonic plate movement. After hundreds of these small earthquakes, the volcano finally decided, I'm sick of these plates jiggling around and disrupting my decade naps. Due to the warning steam released from the volcano that happened to come in the form of small explosions, a crater blasted through the volcano's uppermost summit ice cap, and an ice cap is literally just a large area of ice covering a small area. In just 7 short days, the crater was almost 1,400 feet in diameter, and 2 enormous cracks intersected the volcano's entire summit. Miles of molten rock had just risen high above the volcano's peak, and this was evident in the volcano's north flank, which now contained an enormous bulge of about 450 feet. Now we have a quiet, peaceful morning on May 18th, and the area's convergent plate boundary decided to move even closer, and Mount Saint Helens did not appreciate this. The result was a 5.1 magnitude earthquake, 5.1 magnitude being on the Richter scale. At exactly 8:32 a.m., citizens from miles away witnessed the volcano's entire new bulge and summit slide away in what became the largest landslide ever in recorded history. A total of 3.3 billion cubic yards of rock became disconnected from the volcano, the equivalent of 1 million Olympic-sized swimming pools. Prior to this landslide, the volcano's magma had built up so much pressure from the previous earthquakes that it couldn't take any extra movement from the landslide, and because of this, several powerful explosions erupted from the sliding debris. Nasty combinations of steam, volcanic gas, rocks, ash blasted from the volcano top and spread so quickly toward the north that anyone within a half-a-mile radius experienced a literal blackout. The blast traveled at about 280 to 300 miles per hour. Thank God it slowed down because the rocks and the volcanic ash fell to the ground and spread quickly away from the eruption site. But this isn't all the good news. If you possess the capability to drive for your life at 100 miles per hour, you would have been one of the lucky ones steered ahead of the foreboding ash cloud of death. By the way, this specific ash cloud traveled at about 17 miles, and that oh so beautiful but deadly landslide that we mentioned earlier deposited all of its product into the poor little North Fork Toutle River. Rest in peace to some of our poor little aquatic friends that were there that day. After the landslide and the initial eruptions, the result was a lingering column of ash and gas that rose 15 entire miles into our poor atmosphere, and all of this happened over the course of just 15 short minutes. This caused hot magma to erupt quite violently from the newly formed crater, and this triggered a second eruption just an hour later, and this eventually led to awful avalanches of gas. Ash, and pumice being poured out of the volcano's crater at about 50 to 80 miles per hour, and they spread at least 5 to 6 miles north of the eruption site. Due to the massive eruption, the rest of this now dark and dooming day of doom was filled with winds that carried 520 million tons of ash and gas to the east of the United States. Whew, that was a lot. Are y'all still awake? Now we're going to move into a rather saddening portion of the video, which is our effects. Human and environmental. A total of 57 lives were lost during the eruption, and thousands of animals were also killed. This volcanic eruption went on to become one of the most economically destructive events in the history of the United States. More than 200 homes were destroyed from the initial blast, pyroclastic flows, or in the lingering ash clouds. 15 miles worth of railway was completely destroyed, and almost 200 miles worth of roads were also damaged. That's a lot. Lingering ash completely clogged dozens of Washington sewage systems, cars, and a few buildings were also destroyed in the initial blast. Because the damage was so severe, the International Trade Commission was tasked with the impossible task of coming up with an estimate for all the damage. The individuals estimated that a total of $1.1 billion were lost in damages that day. The US took a major L that year. Luckily, our sometimes nice and sometimes caring US Congress decided to step in, and they donated nearly $1,950 million to be exact in emergency funds to the Army Corps of Engineers, Small Business Administration, and the Federal Emergency Management Agency to assist in the efforts of recovery. Let's talk about generosity. Now that we're done discussing the volcano's human impacts, let's discuss the volcano's environmental effects. First off, the landslide that triggered the initial eruption deposited all of its rock and landmass into the nearby Toutle River Basin. The mud flows that followed filled the Cowlitz River Channel and round down valley into the beautiful Columbia River. The blasts of hot gas and ash that followed the initial eruption caused thousands of acres of forest along the mountain surrounding areas to be burned and scorched. Vegetation along the surrounding areas was completely destroyed and remained scarce for months after the eruption day. Some effects of the eruptions this day were felt on a global level, seeing as how the eruption emitted over 10 million tons of carbon dioxide into our poor atmosphere. This caused Earth's global temperatures to be lowered by about 0.1 degrees Celsius. Majority of the volcano effects were only felt on a regional level, seeing as how most of the affected water and wildlife were felt among cities in Washington and the northwestern region of the United States. Wildlife was also a major aspect of damage that was caused by the eruption of Mount Saint Helens. The Washington State Department of Game estimated that nearly 7,000 big game animals, some of which included bear, deer, and elk, perished in the areas near the eruption site. All in all, I will say that although Mount Saint Helens suffered some damage that some citizens would deem irreparable, the mountain/volcano has already begun to heal its wounds. By the way, for those of you who want to learn more about the healing methods that the volcano performs till this day, be sure to check out the other videos about the Mount Saint Helens eruption here on the channel that don't actually exist, by the way, but I wanted to be John Green today, so. Before we go, I want to briefly share with you guys some fun facts about the 1980 eruption of Mount St. Helens. Did you know that the amount of trees blown down in the initial blast were a total of 4 billion board feet of timber, which is enough to build about 300,000 two-bedroom homes? Nope, probably not. Neither did I. Did you know that the extent of the winds of the eruption spread across the United States in just 3 short days, and it encircled the entire Earth in 15 short days? Nope, me neither, so I'm guessing not. Did you know that the landslide that triggered the initial eruption decreased the volcano's original elevation of 9,677 feet to just 8,307 feet? Yes, I did. Yes, sir, I did. This one I actually know thanks to Dr. Congreve's incorporation of the Mount Saint Helens topographic maps from 1953 and 1980 used in Lab 1. This has been Disastrous Science with yours truly, Christian Baker, and today we discuss the monstrous effects of the monster that is Mount Saint Helens. What will we discuss next? I don't know. The 2004 Indian Ocean earthquake and tsunami, the 1915 San Francisco earthquake, the Mandela effect. Okay, seriously, thanks for watching Disastrous Science. My name is Christian Baker. Till next time. That's a wrap.